What I did do, though, last night, as I sat and talked and thought about the show and thought to myself, after that fantastic performance from Richie McCaw, I thought to myself, who has been the greatest Super Rugby player of its era? The last 20-odd years. And I thought to myself, let's have the conversation. And as I came into the office, JK decided, what are the stipulations? What does it all mean? And I'm
what's
saying
the context? I said, what's the context?
The context
you can't just throw that out. Like...
OK. So they had to have played a minimum 5 seasons. Longevity counts. The fact you can't be a one-season wonder, then go overseas. OK, you've had to have won titles and had success. Otherwise, how do you back up and justify what has been your career as a Super Rugby player? Now, remembering, I'm talking just Super Rugby. And the impact on your team and competition. And how competitive do you think your team would be without that player?
What is right? OK, so what you're saying, if the player's not there, you can't win.
Well, not that you can't win, but it becomes significantly more difficult. And so after the weekend, I just threw it out that maybe it is Richie McCaw. You think about the 3 Super Rugby titles plus Super Rugby Aotearoa and another Super Rugby Aotearoa. I'm looking at his performance, the impact he has on the game, and I don't know if I've seen a player. And yes, he's playing for a Crusaders team, which is outstanding. And they are giving him a platform to play off. But under pressure in big moments when the game is on the line, he's found ways to win. And his ability week on week to perform. And from the very moment he stepped on that field for them, he has been outstanding. Now you can come at me. I've had my go. No
South African teams for the last 2 years?
Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Get over there and get the late tackles and...
It's not an issue we've had.
I'm not disagreeing. I think he's absolutely outstanding. But Richie McCaw?
Absolutely, yeah. And but saying that through his career, if you think about the players who have won the number of titles.
I don't know what Hannah thinks, but it's hard to disagree with what you've come up, Jeff, and considering his age as well. You know, I look at those 2 titles, a couple of titles that he won earlier on. He was out. He had a broken hand. He was out in the following, you know, so he was out for a considerable amount of time. He came back and still done stuff like this, like he's doing against the Reds. You know, he was out the following year with a hamstring injury or something for, you know, at least 5 or 6 weeks. He came back. But for me, really, it's the big moments that he wins. It's not big moments where you win it to get a line out and then try and score. He wins big moments. You look at the Chiefs game when they play the Chiefs, you know, they're under the pump. Like, you know, you kick a ball. You decide in your mind whether you're good enough to kick that ball 10 metres, win it, not only just win it back, but then score a try. Big moments like against, you know, a Reds team. Yeah, he's had a couple of dips, but I think his dips are still world class. So when you look at someone like that and how significant, you know, some of the stuff he does and the titles that he's won, I know, you know, we haven't played South Africa, but I think his influence on, you know, on the Crusaders is huge.
A lot of great players through the eras, though, Hannah. And do you suggest someone different, or is there an argument for you who you look at it and go, you know what, they are a player who's had greater influence?
Yeah, 141 games, 1,700 points. For me, there's only one person it can be, and that's Dan Carter, I think. Richie McCaw is on the way to track that path, but he's not quite there yet. The amount of games that Dan Carter played and the influence that he had on all of them stand out.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue it. And one of the things you're always going to get to the point is the fact it's very, very difficult to win this competition, JK, as most teams have found out, without a world-class 10. And there's a number of guys, and I'm going to put this list up before you go and come back at it. Look, there's Dan Carter, and you're right, Hannah, you know, you can't argue with his success, part of a fantastic Crusaders team. But here's a list of players I just put together. Obviously, there's the titles. Dan Carter's won 3. Mornay Steyn, that fantastic Bulls first 5-8 when they went through there. He wins 3 titles. Why have I got George Gregan there, where I believe the Brumbies without George Gregan, you think those 136 games, it ended up with 2 titles, but significantly improved their ability to win. And then Andrew Mertens won 5 titles. And through that era, through the 90s and early 2000s, remarkable player. So I look across that, JK, and I'm going, yes, there's playmakers. We've had so many other great players, but I look at it in the fact that if he didn't get the title, if he didn't get the chip, the ring, you know, the things you talk about, can you separate yourselves? And there's been great players by position, but for the whole competition over time, Carlos Spencer, another one in that conversation.
Big lossy. Yeah, no, look, for me it's a real interesting one because I cannot get the thought out of my mind of what you do in the All Blacks and then come back to Super. So that's probably clouding. I think that Richie McCaw has the possibility to be our best ever, right? And when Dan Carter retired, I go, what are we going to do now? And then Bowden comes along, and Bowden's sort of been, you know, away a little bit, and we're thinking, oh, this guy's the future. He comes on, and then Richie McCaw the other night was just outstanding. But I struggle when he's so young and only this far through his career. So I would say to you, this guy could break all the records, but for me, of all time, I'd probably have to go with DC at the moment.
At the moment, and that's what you're talking about, right? You talk about, and I must admit, look, as I threw it out there when I was saying it to myself, yeah, I recognise the fact that he is young, but I look at some other guys who've had great influence. You like Chivi Kevin Mialamu, but in the end, when you're not playing in that pivotal position, when you're under those pressure moments and having to make those decisions, Christian Cullen, we know, is one of the greatest fullbacks ever to play the game, but his ability to impact a game, we talked about the possibility of, say, an Aaron Smith. I mean, those are critical things.
So you're just ignoring every other position, is that what you're telling me?
I'm not ignoring every other position. I think it just emphasises more and more the fact how critical it is if you want to have success at any level. Hence, that's why they're in demand, right?
Was Richie McCaw on your list?
Well, of course he was on my list, but reality was, how injured was he? How many games did he play? Did he rest?
4 titles.
Yeah.
3 as captain.
Yeah. I'd say he'd had a greater influence on the All Blacks. I think he was the greatest All Black of all time. But in terms of Super Rugby and leading it on, look, my list was flawed. I knew that. So I look at the fact that once again, though.
So Richie really needs, if you're saying that, if Richie wants to be the best, he needs to secure that number 10 jersey for the All Blacks.
Exactly.
And right now, what you guys are saying, you're going away from the fact that he's the best Super Rugby player. You're saying he's got to be the best of the best. So
well, I think
he's got competition.
I was thinking on the weekend when he was playing against the Reds, I hope he plays in the All Black 10 with that joy and freedom, because I haven't seen that yet. And it's a different level, we all know that. But, wow, he's exciting and he just seems to have this confidence with him. And it's always hard. We all know how hard it is when you go to international and all of a sudden time gets shorter.
So how do we... I'll morph that conversation then, the fact that if he's playing at that level and you're getting guys at that level, how do we take some of the positive things, Hannah, that may be happening at the Crusaders? And obviously they're playing with momentum right now. How do they take that across to the next level? Because surely you'd want to hold on to that, because when you see the freedom they're playing with, that's something special. You've been in teams, right, when all of a sudden it's just going.
Yep. And sometimes it doesn't translate into the national team, right? You've got to take a different culture and different group of players, but hopefully the first couple of test matches against Fiji will afford him the ability to actually play like he's been playing in Super Rugby.
Yeah, and that's critical, right? I mean, challenging though, Mills and JK, for those teams, when you look at the form of our sides right now, and I know this is just changing tangent a little bit, but that's going to be a big ask for both Tonga and Fiji coming up against an All Blacks team, which is playing at a level at the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually worried about those games. I don't think they should go ahead unless we free the guys from Tongan and Fijian descent from here and don't ban them from playing in the future, and the players come home from Europe. I'd rather see a north-south or a possibles probables with Bowden at 10 and Moanga on the other 10 and mix the two forward packs up. I reckon that'd be... I'd go and see that game every day of the week. My biggest concern is, and I want to see Pacifica Rugby get the chance, but are they going to be able to be prepared to play a battled, hardened group of players that have just come off 2 amazingly difficult tournaments? That's my biggest worry. So it's no use getting Richie Moanga out there against Fiji if we're going to beat them by 60 or 70 or 80. We're not going to learn anything. So that's my biggest concern. And
that's what we're waiting for, isn't it, Mills, the fact, the availability of Northern Hemisphere players, because we know at a Rugby World Cup, these teams, when they come together, they are incredibly competitive and they can handle the level. If they don't get the players, do you hold the same concerns?
Oh, absolutely. I'll have to agree. Like, the fact is, you're not going to get the best players. I mean, they've got to come all the way from Europe. All their clubs let them go. So what do you get out of it? I mean, the fact is, COVID is a massive thing. So we have to kind of, get some games or some test matches, underway. What are the results going to be? Well, I just can't. They won't be competitive at all. And so, where does that put, the Pacific Island, nations? I mean, I know you've got to start somewhere. But look at where the Aussies have come in terms of, Super Rugby Aotearoa compared to AU. I mean, then you go to another level. So it's just, I can't, it's a real concern to me, really.
North-South, bring it back. North-South, bars.
Bringing it back, we only had it for 1 year. It's not bringing it back, it's just play it again. I will say this is, though, if you disagree with us, email us at thebreakdown.co.nz. JK will read through all of the replies and he'll answer every single one of them personally.